Welcome back to another episode of Adaptive Men. I'm your host, Michael Reed. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I want to talk to you about nice guy behavior, people pleasing, and lessons I've learned along the way in my journey to break this behavior to become more assertive, more authentic in my own skin, and on how I think you can actually benefit from these lessons as well. I start off, though, I want to make the point to say that you have understanding that nice guy behavior, people pleasing behavior is, in a nutshell, implicitly what is being said is I am more concerned about the approval of others than I am about having an opinion that might dissent from the group. Oftentimes, this is not a voluntary decision. This is not you voluntarily, consciously saying to yourself, I'm going to agree with everyone else because I am actively afraid. All these behaviors, all these triggers, all these psychological processes that go on behind the scenes, it's all subconscious when it happens. When you go into this people pleasing mode, when you are afraid to assert yourself, when you're afraid to have an opinion that's going to be different from other people, especially as a man in today's day and age, especially as a man, especially on the internet, it's extremely difficult to hold that ground because you have to understand that millions of years of evolution have created us into hyper social creatures. Your brain, your mind, all that gray matter up there, its sole purpose is to keep you safe and to survive. And a big function of that is to understand that group cohesion was one of the best predictors of survival across time as a human being. Disagreeing with the group may have had its benefits here and there, but you also had to consider the fact that if you disagreed and they didn't like it and they kicked you out, you are on your own and you're fucked. So give yourself a little bit of empathy, a little bit of grace when you think about having a hard time saying no, getting to establish boundaries with people. You're having a difficult time. You're quite literally on some level fighting millions of years of evolution that has gotten you to a place to survive into the modern day and age. And unfortunately, it's just a mechanism that has become somewhat outdated in a way. So a lot of this behavior in terms of people pleasing is essentially learned and taught in childhood. When we are first born, we are completely, not even extremely, we are completely dependent on our caregivers, our parents, our guardians, our whoever is the one. We cannot disagree with them growing up. You can't. It's a death sentence, quite literally. They are the ones providing you with food, shelter, safety, and all the things in between. As you grow up and become more self-competent and self-sufficient, you can start to develop a sense of, I can do things for myself. I'm allowed to have my own opinions. I'm allowed to have my own feelings, my own thoughts, my own space. I can take up space emotionally. But if we don't get the opportunities to practice what it's like to have a dissenting opinion and feel the emotional impact going on internally when we disagree with somebody, when we have an opinion that runs away from the group, when we run contrary to the grand narrative in the group or in the society or whatever it may be, if you don't get opportunities to practice sitting with the discomfort of displeasing others, you'll never get better at doing this. And you have to understand that on some level, what's happening is that you're crossing a boundary with somebody. Boundaries can be confusing in this regard because boundaries are essentially invisible. You can't see them until you've crossed them, which means you have to voluntarily risk crossing them, not knowing where they are. Crossing a boundary with somebody else will trigger an emotional reaction in other people. And their emotional reaction is an attempt to trigger an emotional reaction in you. So understand that all this is happening subconsciously. Your brain is constantly scanning the person in the conversation I'm talking to, the people I'm talking to, especially nowadays with social media, even worse than ever. We are being conditioned through mass amounts of echo chambers and online opinions and behaviors that are native to human psychology that are being amplified without any kind of course correction in the form of fearful of having opinion, especially when your opinion now can echo into infinity on the internet. It's almost more dangerous than ever on some level to have a dissenting opinion. And yet at the same time, society doesn't move forward if people don't have dissenting opinions. along the way, what you'll come to realize that if you don't learn how to establish your own boundaries, you don't learn how to say no to people, you don't learn to stop people pleasing excessively. It's one thing to say, I want to help people out and be nice and be kind and caring. But it's another thing to say, I have certain opinions and boundaries and things that I will stand up for that may rub people the wrong way. If you don't learn to establish your own boundaries, other people will do it for you. This could be physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological, whatever it may be. Yes, agreeableness is a thing, but assertiveness is the ability to agree with what you actually agree with and not be fearful of disagreeing with what you don't. Granted, even when you disagree, there will be some minor element of fear that comes up, but despite the fear, you still can hold your ground against the emotional waves that might run through you in response to the person disagreeing with you in the moment. So, in a nutshell, what you're saying to yourself is when you disagree with somebody, when you have a moment that you want to people please, but you choose not to, when you're trying to break this behavior of trying to please somebody, if you've done nothing wrong, either in your opinion or just having an opinion that disagrees with other people, if you can objectively say to yourself and to others, this is my opinion, or I have not deliberately said anything with the intention to upset or displease somebody outright, then I have nothing to really fear as far as consequences. And I have to just ride the emotional wave internally until I acclimate to it. On some level, when you get into a loop of people pleasing, of being a nice guy, of fearful of setting boundaries, you're getting rewarded for it internally for doing it the more you do it. Even if you don't agree with what you're saying or what you're doing, your body's still rewarding you because you're keeping the social cohesion, you're keeping the social fabric in good standing with the people around you. Because again, I am more concerned with the approval of others than I am about having an opinion that might not fit the mold. Personally, me growing up, I had a long history of people pleasing behavior and of nice guy behavior, mainly as a function of a lot of emotional tension that grew up in my household. I'm a bit more agreeable than average. I lean a little bit more people friendly. I really enjoy talking and engaging with people a little more often. So I have a natural proclivity. I'm not much of a naturally aggressive type person. I'm not much of a guy that loves to stir the pot outright. But this kind of worked against me for a long time as it became difficult to really figure out who I was, what I really enjoyed doing, what I was passionate about, and learn to say no to the things I really didn't care about, things I really didn't like, things I didn't really feel confident and passionate and interested in doing. Especially when people would ask me, are you interested in doing this? You want to come along with us for that? Do you want to, what do you think of this? And I'd be having to fight these two battles of this is how I feel, but this is what I know you want to hear. And over a long enough period of time, you start to lose a sense of who you genuinely, authentically are because you're almost too afraid to defend it. So a lot of this behavior is essentially taught in childhood because, again, we are born with a natural inclination to keep our parents happy, keep our family happy, because we have to be part of the social system. We do, absolutely. But you also, at some point, need to start to learn to separate from the system to have a sense of individuation. And that individuation takes the form of having an opinion that people might not agree with and holding your ground emotionally, internally, especially when they're disagreeing with you, when they're flashing you signs of, I don't agree with you. I don't like that you don't agree with me. It's what you said made me upset. What you said, whatever it may be, being able to say, I understand all that. I understand you don't like me right now. I understand I'm upsetting you. And this is what I feel to be true. Even if it's the wrong thing right now, maybe I'm allowed to change my opinion later on once I have new information. But in the moment, this is what I feel to be true and authentic for me. Going a step further than that, I had a long difficulty with relationships, especially with women, because unfortunately, this kind of people pleasing behavior is innately a turnoff for many heterosexual women. Why? Because a man that can't say no to a woman, or to anyone for that matter, what you're essentially saying implicitly underneath that statement is you can't stand up to her emotions. How are you going to be able to stand up to the emotionality of a child if the two of you decide, maybe down the road, even if she's not going to be having kids, even if you're in a long-term relationship with a woman and you have no interest in having a family, there is still an underlying implicit calculation going on in her head that says he has no boundaries. he's kind of a pushover. He doesn't know how to assert himself. He doesn't know how to have an opinion that might disagree with me or others. What is it going to be like if hypothetically a child came into the equation? They're going to be a way more emotional than the woman is going to be. If you can't handle her, how are you going to handle that? If you can't handle her, how are you going to handle the world around you? So when you learn to start having an opinion and walking into a situation and saying to yourself, this is probably going to piss some people off. They're going to flash some signs and behaviors in their facial behaviors and their body language that says, I don't like that you said that, or I disagree with what you just said, or I have a differing opinion, whatever it may be. When you can get the practice and the repetition to say, I'm going to say it anyway, and I know my body's going to flash some internal anxiety, I'm going to get nervous, I'm going to get flush, my blood pressure might spike, my nerves might start going off, I'm going to get anxiety, I'm going to get a little fidgety. I'm just going to ride it out. I'm going to slowly breathe through it. I'm going to just focus internally. I'm going to try to ignore the thoughts that are coming to my head, telling me to change my opinion right now because it's really dangerous. The more you start to practice this, even if it's a smaller dose, the better you get at it. The more better you get at it, the more assertive you become to figure out who you are, where your boundaries are, and then as a result, especially in the mating and dating game, women are going to find you more attractive. People are going to want to work with you. People know who you are because your words line up with your actions and you're not flip-flopping between opinions. You're confident in who you are. You're okay to say, I have an opinion, it's going to disagree. I'm okay with things going wrong if it goes wrong because I'll take ownership of it. I'm able to say no. No is a complete sentence. You don't need to say anything else beyond that. Well, why don't you want to? I just, no. How about this? No. Well, why not? Don't need to give you a reason if I don't really need to feel the need to. It's just my opinion. It's how I'm feeling. No. Keep it simple. So how we might go about practicing this? How did I break through? And I'm still on my own journey right now. I'm not perfectly there yet, but I'm much further along than I was when I first started. How do you start to practice breaking this behavior? How do you start to practice handling the disapproval of other people? For number one, keep it small. Practice in small doses. The internet, for example, is a terrible, terrible place to practice trying to have a dissenting opinion because it is just basically an infinite number of people all trying to crush you with the collective weight of an opinion that might not be the norm. Start with one or two people in your life. Find somebody in your life that you trust. You could be a therapist, it could be a coach, it could be a close friend, it could be a family member, somebody, and just say to them outright, hey, I'm trying to practice breaking some people-pleasing behavior. I'm having a hard time setting boundaries. Maybe you know this about me already, maybe you don't, whatever it may be. I'm going to once in a while have a moment where you're going to say something to me and I'm going to disagree with it. I'm going to take a couple seconds and I'm just going to have to disagree and I'm going to try to let me sit there with that discomfort until it passes, and then I can try to hold my ground through the feeling, through the emotion of what's going on internally. You might say something and I have to sit there about 4 or 5 seconds in complete silence and just think to myself, do I actually agree with this or not? And if I don't, I'm going to say it out loud. And I just ask that you just give me a little space while I wait for this emotion to pass by, because I'm practically in real time trying to retrain myself to be okay with asserting a boundary, with saying no, with disagreeing with somebody. And it's going to take repetition because you have to break that behavior pattern in your head. You have to work through the internal emotional waves and ripples that are going to go on because I'm violating my own behavior patterns by trying to make new behavior patterns. My brain doesn't like it because after millions of years of evolution, my brain is saying to me, if you disagree with the group, they might kick you out. But in the modern age, there's plenty of groups I could be a part of. There's plenty of people that'll agree with me, plenty of people that are okay with me having a dissenting opinion that doesn't agree with you. Number two, practice assertiveness by asking for what you want. Not what you feel you need, not what you feel other people need. If you have a genuine desire for something that you want, start small. Start super small if you need to. Practice when you're at a restaurant and something happens and you have food that you don't like. You ordered a plate of food or you got a drink and it's not exactly what you wanted. Have it sent back. Ask for what you actually want. Maybe they forgot to include a piece of food in the plate. Maybe they gave you the wrong drink. Maybe they're missing. Something's missing somewhere. Don't just sit there. Take a small bit and say, take a breath, calm yourself down, call the waiter or waitress over and say, hey, actually, I ordered this or this, or I would like this and this extra. Could you do that for me? And just see what happens. You might not get the outcome you want, but at the very least, the goal is not to get the outcome. The goal is to practice asserting yourself to say, this is important to me. I would like some more cheese on my pasta. I would like a Diet Coke instead of a Coke, whatever it may be. They made a small mistake, or there's something that was missing, or maybe something want a little bit extra, something else. Practice something tiny where you can say, do you mind if I get X, Y, and Z? Do you mind if I ask you a question? Do you mind if I have this little extra little thing added to the plate? Do you mind if I actually have a differing opinion? Would you be okay with hearing it? Putting it out there, saying, I'm going to say it to you. I'm going to give you some degree of permission to reject me if you don't want to hear it, but it's at the very least, I'm going to just say it and ask for what I want, regardless of the outcome. Number three practice tool would be to start journaling. When you go out into the world, maybe you could bring a small notepad with you, maybe jot that on your phone. Whenever you're in a moment where you disagree with something, or you have a differing opinion, or you want something and you didn't do it, jot it down. You don't have to judge yourself. You don't have to give yourself shame. You don't have to attack yourself over it. Just jot it down. Just jot it down saying, I actually wanted to do this, but I ended up doing this. I actually wanted to ask for that, but I ended up asking for that. Or even better, make it a point to tell you people around you, if you're close friends, your close family, that you might have moments where you're going to do a quick of a, almost a typo, a quick check. You're going to change your opinion mid-sentence. You're just going to say out loud, actually, I said this, but actually what I want is this. Actually, I said this, but actually what I feel is this. I know it sounds like I'm changing my opinion right now, but I'm actively trying to change my behavior in real time. Think of it as a sort of autocorrect. You just say out loud that actually, I know I said this, but this is how I actually feel. And then sit with that discomfort, sit with the feeling. And the more you sit with it, the more you start to practice saying, this is how I feel. You might disagree with it, but this is how I feel. And just sit with whatever happens next. So, in summary, understand that assertiveness is your ability to agree with what you don't actually agree with and not be fearful of what you disagree with. Your childhood is where your people-pleasing behavior is going to come from, and your adulthood is where you're going to start to break it through small incremental practice. No is a complete sentence. Boundaries are invisible until you end up crossing them. There's no way to actually cross a boundary without triggering an emotional reaction in somebody else. That will trigger an emotional reaction in you, and you learning to handle that response in yourself is the goal, not to try to change the response in other people. And the more you do this, the more you're going to see how much more women are going to be attracted to you, especially as a man. If you're a heterosexual man, women are going to be attracted to people. People are going to want to talk to you. People are going to trust you more. People are going to know that if you say something, it's going to line up with how you actually feel. And if you've done nothing wrong, if you can objectively say, this is my opinion, or I have not deliberately said anything with intent to upset or displease someone outright, then I have nothing to fear. And I have to ride the emotional wave internally. And the more I practice it, the better I'm going to get at it, the happier I'm going to be, the more I'll be able to figure out, who am I authentically? And what do I care about? Where are my boundaries? And how do I hold them up against other people? So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe, drop a comment. And if you feel this is helpful, please send it along to somebody you know who feels could benefit from a message like this. Until next time, I'll see you next week.